Prince Andrew, it's all over for him. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I've explained before that you get a lot of narcissists in royal families. This goes back historically, that when the earliest forms of a nation came to be, for instance, there was somebody that you would unite warring tribes and to generate a semblance of a nation, it often took an individual that was ruthless, that would stop at nothing, that would trample on people, that was preoccupied with success, that wouldn't have emotional empathy for those around them. And that would mean that invariably those early kings and queens, those emperors and empresses, etc., were invariably narcissists. Of course, one of the most important things that a king would do would be to have a number of heirs, male heirs. And therefore, this meant that rather than someone being picked on the basis of merit to lead a nation, it meant that the individual who would then become the leader of that nation was simply that through accident of birth. This accident of birth meant that there was a substantial chance that the narcissist that had originally formed the nation would then pass on the genetic predisposition towards narcissism to that particular heir. Furthermore, the environment in which that heir was brought up would invariably be a form of a lack of control environment. This may well be being subjected to things that no child should ought to see. The fact that they had people around them that would have to bend their knee and kiss their hand and basically show deference to a child, all of which meant that the child didn't actually develop respect from people, had no control over the way that people dealt with them. They automatically provided them with a gilded environment. In other instances, the child barely saw anything of their parents as they were brought up separate from them, which also could contribute to a lack of control environment. And this means that as a consequence of the genetic predisposition being passed on and the peculiar environment that exists for somebody that is brought up in a royal situation, narcissist after narcissist after narcissist was created. It also means that many instances it was the narcissist that managed to survive amongst all of the various plots and chicanery and skullduggery that went on with the infighting that took place amongst royal houses. This has been something that has resulted in a number of narcissists appearing in the existing royal family that I've identified for you previously. And one of those, of course, is Prince Andrew, the Duke of York. He finds his situation a difficult one. An article by Charles Switzer, writing for the Royal Observer, explains, "It's all over for Prince Andrew." A well-placed source explained to the Daily Express that the Duke of York has until the end of this year to vacate the Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, his home of 21 years. On the basis that that is accurate, that amounts to a substantial threat to his control. The Royal Lodge is a residual benefit for him in terms of having a rather grand residence at which he can live. The removal of such status by being forced to move elsewhere, and the suggestion is that he would be given Frogmore Cottage instead as a place to live, damages his sense of status, which of course for a narcissist is problematic as it is a threat to control. The Jeffrey Epstein associate will need to come up with roughly $2.6 million to fund required repairs on the rotting mansion in order to stay. Andrew has been asked to prove that he has the financial resources in place to conduct the necessary repairs to Royal Lodge, the source explained. If he is unable to do that by the end of the year, formal discussions will be held with the Crown Estate about how best to move forward. It's problematic because the Duke is largely regarded as being broke and that he would not be in a position to finance the renovations. This is because King Charles III reportedly cut off his lucrative yearly allowance. The late Queen Elizabeth II showered in the pampered, rotund prince. His Majesty also allegedly severed his younger brother's security detail at the compound, which is set to expire this month. Those actions on the part of King Charles, of course, are his demonstrations of control over his brother. The fact that he won't tolerate him freeloading in that respect, whereas, of course, The Duke of York expects that he should be able to do so by virtue of his status and, of course, his rampant sense of entitlement. The insider continued by stating, "It's the closest Andrew has come to being evicted since he was asked to step down as a working royal 2 years ago." The siege of Royal Lodge, as it's become known, has been raging ever since the monarch came to the throne 2 years ago. Andrew has to take care of the upkeep of the building, royal reporter Michael Cole shared. When you have an old rambling house like that one, it's very expensive to maintain. It is believed that one of King Charles's latest tactics to kick his younger brother, or in other words, to assert control over him, was to allow his security detail to come to an end. Cole thinks that this is His Majesty's way of sending a signal to his sibling that he is no longer playing around with the freeloader, as one palace insider shared. Due to his past shocking assault claims, the prince has been described by many as certainly needing strong security. Cole continued, "It is a huge expense over the year, and it is a question for Prince Andrew. He wants the protection. He believes that he deserves it. Naturally, he will do so as a consequence of his sense of entitlement. But the question becomes, who is going to pay? He will think that it ought to be paid for him, because he's entitled to it." The King's reported main wish to end the rift is to see Andrew move into the much more economical Frogmore Cottage, which was renovated for now booted ex-residents Prince Harry and this one's wife. One insider claimed that the portly prince with champagne and caviar tastes was not moving into the Sussex's now former old pile of shit. One can certainly imagine Prince Andrew talking about the property in such terms as, commensurate with the status of narcissist that he is particularly blunt and direct and haughty. Nevertheless, Cole further observed, Frogmore Cottage is not such a problem because it's closer to Windsor Castle, and it is within the security boundary of the castle, so it wouldn't be such a problem to be able to accomplish it. Accordingly, the suggestion is that Prince Andrew is expected to pay millions in repairs, but King Charles knows that he hasn't got the money to do so, and therefore, given the fact that he can't, he's going to be evicted. This amounts to a huge threat to Prince Andrew's control, and naturally would have resulted in an ignition of fury, and will have caused him to denounce his brother as he seeks to stay. He is incapable of recognising that he shouldn't be able to freeload. He thinks that as the fact that he's the Duke of York and that he's the King's brother, that he should be afforded this property, that he should be afforded the security because, after all, he is the Duke of York. He doesn't see that he is a burden. He sees that he is entitled to it. That is the way that his narcissism functions. And the suggestion is that it's all over for him, as apparently he now has an eviction date. King Charles, demonstrating his absence of emotional empathy for his brother, continues to threaten Prince Andrew's need for control by the suggestion that he's not getting any more freebies and that he's going to be evicted. It remains to be seen whether this will happen, but it's certainly interesting to see the clash that takes place between these two individuals and how it continues to threaten the need for control that Prince Andrew has. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.